Okay, if you want to follow along, you can follow along. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Is it big enough? I'm on a monitor, so I'm not sure. Can you
Yeah, we
guys
can.
see clearly enough?
Yeah,
It's big enough.
it's good.
Okay, okay. So I guess the first step will be creating the project. We'll just use Vit to make it easier to scaffold the project. So basically, I'll use Yarn, but you can use NPM if you want to follow along. Yarn create Vit to the application. So this is a perfect example of an application that you can try out React with, just to see the workflow and how things are done. So you can open that repo.
Hey, Joseph,
Yeah.
zoom a little bit. Stamina imekuwa kidogo.
Okay, acha tukienda kwa code nitazoom.
Sawa sawa.
Let's open it in VS Code. You'll tell me if it's big enough. Let's maybe make it, yeah, that. Can you see clearly enough?
Bado.
Bado.
Ukiweka full screen itakuwa distracting ama?
Itakuwa kubwa sana. Ama wacha ni
ama hivyo. Exactly.
Hivyo iko better.
Exactly.
Okay.
Unaweza ongeza font size.
Acha nitumie lapi. That will be easier. Monitor inakwanga normal kiasi. Let me share the laptop screen. Let me just use the laptop. It will be a little bit easier. You can see the screen. I hope it's better.
Yeah.
It's better, right?
Yeah. That is good.
Okay, so let's do it. And the first thing that when you scaffold the project, you have to install the dependencies. So if you have Yarn, you just run Yarn. If you have NPM, you just run npm I or npm install. It will install your dependencies. So that's what I'm doing currently here. I think I lost you guys for a second. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, let's continue. I had a small network issue. So yeah, basically after scaffolding the application, maybe we can be exploring the files while it's building. Just as a recap, you'll have this public. This public is basically where you put your public assets. So things like images that will be visible to everyone on your website. So this is an example of a public asset. As you can see, it's the Vit SVG. Apart from that, after running Yarn or npm install, you'll get this node modules folder here. Basically, it houses all our dependencies. All our packages are inside here. If you want to look for React, you can come here and you'll see React. Here it is. Here is React DOM and additional packages and dependencies. Okay, so the next thing is the source folder. It also has an assets. If you want to have like SVGs or fonts or style files or whatever assets are in your project, you can put them here just for grouping. Yeah, this one is just a CSS file for the app. And then this is the app component. We'll spend most of our time here. Let's just clean it up a bit. You can even remove the whole thing. Yeah, so if you have that extension that Ian mentioned yesterday, you can just run it. For me, I want to use like an arrow function. So I have to say RAFCE. So I select this one. If you want to use a function expression, you select RAFC. This one will basically give us an arrow function, and then this one will give us, oh, it's the same. There's another one for the function expression. I think it's this one maybe, yeah. So depending on your preference, I prefer using arrow function. So basically this is just it's a component, the app component, which is a function that returns this div, this this div with app inside it. Yeah, so you can continue exploring the files, index.css. Here you put your global styles, like styles that you want to be shared across the whole application, can be housed here. Then main.tsx, this is the main entry point of the application. And if you come to index.html, you'll see that that main file is referenced on the script tag. So basically, it's the entry point of our app. Yeah, here it is, source main.tsx. And it has a few of the React methods imported from React that now put the application inside this div called root. It is just a recap. I'm just saying what Ian has been saying the whole week. Yeah, so basically that's the main.tsx. You can come here and, oh shit, I did tsx. I was supposed to do JS. Ian, is it okay to continue TS, or I can just do a JS one? If you're here.
Yeah, I think it depends on the guys. If they're okay with TypeScript, by all means, you can continue.
I just went to my default, the way I do it. So if they want JS, I can quickly switch to JS.
Yeah,
So,
I think JS
them.
makes it easier because most of them are
definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
TypeScript.
Yeah, let's do that. I just went to my default. Sorry, guys. But it won't take that long to create another project. So let's create another one. And create Vite to do app JS. Then React, JavaScript. It's been a while since I selected that option. So yeah, it's nice. This is the beauty of it. If you are using Create React App, you'll have been there for at least maybe 15 minutes waiting for it to scaffold the application. So I have bit shortcuts. So this runs here and what I did before. I have like a plugin for that, just so that I don't have to type out everything. But it's basically in the background it's running, and even you can see here, yarn install. Yeah, so let's continue running down the file while it's installing. So you also have this git ignore. Everything that is in this file will basically be ignored by version control. For example, this node modules, it's a very big folder containing very many packages, and it's very massive in terms of size. So you don't want to commit it to version control. That's why it's here. Something else that you would want maybe to put here is if you have a .env file that has like secrets for your project. For example, an API key, or maybe anything that you don't want to be exposed, like in your code base on GitHub. You also have to define it here so that it's ignored by version control. Yeah, there's also this one index.html file, which, as we've been saying, it's the only HTML file in this whole project. Basically, React will be responsible for changing what appears to the user on the UI, but it will be using only this one HTML page, and that's why we normally say that React is used to create single page applications. So basically, it's one HTML page, one single page, and then React does the magic under the hood with JavaScript. Yeah, this is another important file here in our project. It's package.json. So React is basically a Node.js project. By a Node.js project, Node.js projects have this package.json, and they use this particular file as a config file for managing the dependencies of the application. So as you can, if we run from top to bottom, this is just the name of the app, all these type module. These are not really important to talk about. We can talk about the three things down here. The first one is scripts. Basically, you define your scripts here for doing different things within the application. For example, this dev script is used to run vit. If you just do vit, it basically runs this package that you've installed here, vit, which is inside these node modules, and it will run your development server so that you can be able to develop the app. If you run maybe npm, if you're using npm, it will be npm run dev, or npm run build, or npm run preview. If it's yarn, it will be yarn dev, yarn build, yarn preview. So basically, if you do yarn dev on your terminal, it will come into this file and run the script that you've specified from this particular part of the JSON file. You can also add your own. For example, if you want to do testing, if you want to do linting, if you had TypeScript, we could add linting. If you had TypeScript, if you want to lint using TypeScript, and then basically just run the TypeScript compiler to lint your files and check for errors, maybe before you do some other build process. Like you can lint before building. So basically this script portion, it can be changed. You can add your own scripts, and you can modify these ones if like you don't want them to be like this. For example, you can call this start. And then when you want to run the server, instead of doing yarn dev, you'll just do yarn start. And then the terminal will just show you what has run there briefly. So this is vit running as per the command here. Yeah, so also tooling within the JavaScript and TypeScript ecosystem is important. It's not all about code. Sometimes you also have to configure tools. You have to know how tools are added to projects. And yeah, package.json is a key file that you should be aware of if you want to modify the behavior based on whichever pipeline you want to create. A good example of tooling would be setting up a linter. ESLint would be a good choice. Linting. Basically, linting is it just checks your code against some rules. So that if the code doesn't abide by the rule, you'll get errors. Another tool that you can do is maybe testing. if you want to set up a test, these are things that you also have to look into once you feel you're comfortable with React. For testing, we have things like vtest, React testing library, testing library. You'll hear things like end-to-end testing. You'll hear things like integration testings and all that. Playwright is another one. Playwright, it's W. You have another one, Jest. These are like things that you can just add to this particular project using this package.json by simply installing packages and configuring the package.json to use whichever tool you're configuring it for. Just as a showcase, maybe we can add a package, an animations package. If you're using npm, it will be npm install, then the name of the package, I guess. But for Yarn, it's yarn add. The package is called Framer Motion. So while we add it here, some magic will happen in our file here. Basically, this is the file that manages the dependencies. You see, a dependencies has been added in as Framer Motion. Before I ran that command, if you had come to node modules here, you wouldn't find this folder for Framer Motion. Now that I've run the command, I have the folder and the project, the package has been installed. So the importance of this package.json is basically once you've coded out your project, it can be, you don't need your computer, your own personal computer to run it. If I put it on GitHub, someone else can download it. Then they get whichever packages I've used, whichever configurations I've done. And then when they run whichever pipeline, they'll be able to get whatever I have on my computer without me having to copy that project into a flash disk or having to like zip it and send it to them. So also it will come to play when you're doing things like creating containers using Docker, for example, because the container will take a copy of your project and then just run yarn or whichever or npm inside the container so that it gets whatever you have on your terminal. So basically this file is used for all that. The vit-config file is used for configuring the development server, in this case the bundler, which is vit. You can add stuff here. So basically, if you wanted the project to be a bit more serious or a bit more big, we will come in with additional configs inside here. And then yarn lock. This yarn lock, it's created after you've installed your modules. Basically it's also used to track your modules and their dependencies, and like these modules that you're seeing here, not modules, these libraries like Framer, like React, like all these types, they have their also they still have other dependencies. Let's just explore that. If you come here, like you'll notice that we have way more packages. Look at all those. Look at like 700 lines or something. We have way more packages than what we have installed here. According to our script, we only have these 3 and these 4. So that's like 7. But if you look at yarn lock, we have way more stuff here. Basically, these packages have dependencies. Those dependencies might have dependencies, and those dependencies might also have other dependencies. So there's a very huge dependency tree. And that's why if you come to node modules, you'll find very, very many folders. And all that is managed by package.json and package.lock.json, package.lock or yarn, package.lock or yarn.lock. In my case, because I'm using yarn, it will be yarn.lock, but yours might be different, might have a different name if you're using npm. Yeah, so that's a rundown of the files. Does anyone have a question there before now we go into the actual coding? I'll assume there's no question. Yeah, so we won't do a lot of styling. We want just to focus on React, so that, yeah, and state and what we've been learning the whole week. So the first thing that we can do is just make sure we can render something on the screen. So the first step, okay, assuming now I'm developing, like in real life, I'd do this. I'd have my server, my application running on this side, on whichever port, and then I would have VS Code on this other side. So basically, let's start from the start. If you have that extension, you can use it to create the component. Let's put default app. Then let's make sure the server is running. That's 74. Localhost 51. 74. Yeah, so as you can see, we have app down here. Let's go and clean up some of these styles. Like this one. Let's yeah. Turn around so that it's not, yeah, there. Then we can just remove the others. We won't focus on styling today. Just want to focus on React and how to use React to how React is different from JavaScript. Yeah, so basically, as you can see, what is printed here, let's just zoom. Then make this one 5. Zoom again so that everybody can see 2. Yeah, I guess everybody will be able to see that. Yeah, so let's start. Now, basically, we'll just do the whole logic so that we can see how different is React from vanilla JavaScript. The first thing that we can do is just put in maybe H1 to do app. Like that. It's quite big. So what is the first thing that you want to do? Let's just do a sort of a few comments. So we'll be writing something, implementing it, and then writing something else, then implementing it. The first thing that we want is how will we be able to get data from the user, in this case in React. React is basically just HTML. We'll basically be using just HTML. So in this case, you can say use a form to get user input. So we want, this is one of the first things that we want to implement. How will we create a form here that will be able to capture user input? So let's do that. That's our first thing. Let's name them. If you're following along, you don't want to go too fast. I hope nobody, if I'm going too fast, maybe you can just say, and then can give some time for you to catch up. But after you've defined the function here, we have our first thing, and this is how you're supposed to break down like your logic. Always break down a big thing into small things that you can handle instead of looking at it as a very, very big thing, because it might be even harder. Oh, Catherine.
Yeah, hi Joseph.
Hi.
Yes, I wanted to see the file structure. I just joined and
I just joined.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can just create a Vite project and then go to the app.jsx and delete everything, and then just have this one function. That's where we are at.
All right. So
maybe we'll give you like a few minutes to do it.
Okay.
Okay, so meanwhile, as Catherine does this thing, we can be writing out what you're supposed to do. The first thing, we need a form to capture user input. What is the next thing? We'll need something to hold that input. So what is that something in React? That something is a piece of state. Create a piece of state to hold the user input. That's step 2. Well, that's what we'll do next after how we have the form. After we've stored this user input inside a piece of state, what is the next thing? We want to have as many to-dos as possible. So we basically have to choose a data structure that is ideal for storing to-dos. In this case, I'll go for an array. So again, the array will be holding data. And then in React, what is that data? That data is state. So again, create a piece of state to hold the to-dos. Sorry, array. To hold the user input, aka the to-do. So you'll have a to-do and we'll have a to-do array. So this is what state is for. Basically, if you have data that you want to put in that app, especially data that changes, that might change, it might be deleted, might be edited, might be updated, you have to hold it in state. State can also help you with doing logic. You can have maybe a Boolean that you change or flip depending on a certain condition, and then use that state, that Boolean state, to do something on your UI. So we're going to see like all these situations here. So what next? After we have something to hold our state, our to do, we have something, a bigger thing to hold all to dos. What else will we do next? So basically, we need to display the to dos. It's an application after all. Display to dos on the UI. And then I'll throw in a bonus. Assuming you've been told that we need a feature whereby we can delete the to-dos. So basically, delete, implement to-dos, to-do deletion logic. And when we'll like as far as we've gone with what we've learned in terms of state, there's a very key thing that you'll notice today, and that is very, very key to understand when you're working with use state and a lot of data. You know, you might have arrays of objects. For example, in our case, we'll have an array of objects. Each to-do will be an object. So let's define the shape of our to-do. If you do this, coding becomes way, way more easier to do shape. It will be an object. The to-do will be an object like that with an ID, which is a string, and a to-do, which is also a string. This is the shape of the to-do shape. And then the shape of the to-do array, like how will they look inside the array? To-do, this is a to-do. Then down here, to-do array. So basically it will be an array like that, and it will have these to-dos inside of it. Can have a to-do like that. Oh, it will be a string. You'll see how we'll do it. It will be a string. Yeah, basically that's the shape of our data. We know already have what we're supposed to do and the shape. So basically, let's now get down to coding. Let's do the first thing. Use a form to get user input. So the very first bit, we'll just be using HTML forms, like what everybody knows. from HTML. I don't have emit. Emit has failed me. Yeah, as you would do in HTML, you will just define a form that will get your data. Inside the form, we don't want many inputs. Just want one input. Emit imekata. Input type text. And then now this is where we need to do something different. Now we're reaching now for React. In React, we have something called controlled and uncontrolled inputs. Controlled and uncontrolled inputs.
Joseph, I've set up my environment.
Okay, nice. Let's now continue together.
Could you just open the file, the directories now, just to have a look at them.
Oh, the notes. This notes.
Yeah, the notes and also the file structure. The file structure.
Oh, okay. Let's.
To compare. Okay, yeah, it looks good.
It looks good. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we didn't really change much. Yeah, so let's continue. In React, we have this concept of controlled and uncontrolled inputs. So what is a controlled input? Let's do this to be easier. Then this comes here. So what is a controlled input? A controlled input is an input that is controlled. Basically, the name defines what it is. Controlled input. Input that is controlled by React. We'll just look at controlled inputs today. And a key strategy of implementing controlled inputs is using state. Here, it's use state. And then we have uncontrolled inputs. We won't look at uncontrolled inputs today, but I just say what they are. Inputs that you control or manage yourself. So the hook that you would reach for to do uncontrolled inputs is a hook called useRef. Like that. We haven't talked about useRef. We've only talked about useState. So basically, we won't look at uncontrolled inputs today. But down the road, when you're talking about useRef, we'll look at it. So we need this input to be controlled. We need this input to be controlled. We don't want this destruction. Let's put it here. And then like that. We want our input to be controlled by React, right? How do you do that? Now that's where you reach for state. Now, what we just implement, we are doing this. User form to get user input. That's what we are doing. We need now a piece of state. Use state. After doing that, it's imported up here from React, as you can see. Or rather, let's just get it directly from React. Let's just import React so that it's very, very clear what you're doing. So just react.useState like that. And then, as we know, what does this useState return? Ian has been singing about this the whole week. It returns an array. So what will we give this? What is this piece of state going to do? It was going to hold our to-do information, the data that will go to the to-do. So let's just call it to-do. Then the setter function can be set to do, like that. Our to-do will be a string, right? Like the to-do itself, the content inside the to-do. This bit, this one, it will be a string. we can track that using this piece of state. And because it's a string, we can start it out as an empty string like that. I hope we are together. Catherine, I hope you're following along, and whoever else is doing it. You can stop me if you fall behind.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Okay. So we've defined the piece of state that will hold our to-do. Now, after having the state, now we want to sort of connect the two. We want to connect our piece of state and our input. How will we do that? Using something that is within HTML. But now we give it into React. This input takes an attribute or a prop called value, this one. So this value, we are going to tie it into React so that this input becomes controlled by React. So basically, if the input changes, anything inside the input changes, React will know that it has changed and it will re-render the page. That's what controlling is all about. React will know when to re-render based on when this state tied to this input changes. So how do we do that? Basically, just give it the name of the piece of state. This piece of state. Okay. Let's do an experiment. Assuming we come in here and say our state will start as something here. As you can see, the input field starts with the something that we've set as the default value of our state. You see, React is controlling this input. Like I've just written something here and it's appeared here as if someone typed it. And if I try to edit it, I can't, because we definitely need an event handler on this input field. Yeah, so that's very key. You need to understand when to reach for state and what state is doing. Yeah, so let's go. User form.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, so if you just scroll down to where we have the function. So let's say we wanted to change, before you removed the something here. So let's say you want to change this string into something else. Can you now use the set to do to change that string to something else?
Yeah, that's where we're heading now. Exactly, that's where we're heading.
Okay.
But very, very good question. So this is now the React way when you're managing state. You'll have the state itself, the value, whether it's an object, whether it's an array, whether it's a string, and you'll have the setter function, the function that you use to set state so that React knows state has changed in order for it to re-render the page. Yeah, so we need an on change. Let's just break these things out into new lines like this so that it's way, way more easier to see. How do you do events in React? It's a very big topic, because basically when you type inside this input, an event is fired out, and that event is called an on change event. Basically, you are changing this input. On change, it's an event. So when the on change event happens, there's something that is produced when you change that input. It's called an event. You'll see it as event or E in React. Let's just log it out and see what E contains. E, okay. So in order to fire this function, actually let's just strip it out so that it's very, very easy to see that it's a function, just an arrow function. So going to move it from here, then handle change. it will take the E, and then console.log E. And then here, so sorry, this function needs, will take that event that will be fired when you change this, when you type inside here. If I type, you see, my console log, there's an event that is fired out when I type inside here. So how do we pass this E to this? As you can see, this is a function that takes an argument there, or a parameter, like it has a parameter here. So how do we ensure that it's okay? Go ahead if you have a question.
Okay, so by logging that event, are we communicating to the virtual DOM or the normal DOM?
We're logging it out here. If it's a control input, basically it's the virtual DOM automatically, because React has charge of that particular piece of state. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. But you'll see. You'll see how everything ties in together. Okay. There's another question. Go ahead. Oh God. Go. You can ask the question.
Asking, I don't know if it's only me or you stopped sharing your screen.
Oh, let me check.
Yeah, it's okay on my side.
I don't know why it stopped sharing. Can you see it now?
Not yet.
Not yet. What happened? An error has occurred when screen sharing. Let me try to do it again. Like, at what point did it go off? Did you guys miss much?
Not much. I think it's now back up.
Okay. Can you see now?
Yeah, it's there.
Okay, let's continue. So as you can see, our function takes in the event here. But you can't, so basically you can't call it like this here. We need to pass that event inside the function itself. So we'll have to define another arrow function here that basically execute our function when you do the change. And then now this arrow function is what will pass the E into our function. So it will take the event from here and basically drop it inside our function like that. Okay. So inside our function, we have the event. That's as you are typing, you can basically see that. Yeah, the name of the event is an onChange event, and we have all this stuff. You can log out it on your place and see on your like IDE and see it. So if this event has something in it, when we change the event, the input field, it will basically contain this value. Whatever you type inside here will be stored inside value. And value, we want to set our state as that value. So how do we do that? As Catherine has asked, we use the setter function, the set to do function. So let's see how that can be done. Basically, let's actually console log again. Console log. It has a target, and these are just like JavaScript. It's just JavaScript. This now is just JavaScript. The event object in JavaScript, it also has a target, and then you can get the value from the target. As you can see, if I type, the value is changing here. It's showing here. So that's how you can access what you're typing inside here. Just the value property inside the target, which is inside the event object. So I have the value. Let's just do this, const value, so that it's as clear as possible. E.target. Can copy this one. you have the value. What do you want to do with the value? We want to store it inside the to-do state here on line 30. So how do we set state? We use the setter function. So you just basically call your setter function and give it value like that. Basically, we are done with the first requirement of our application. Use a form to get user input. How can we test this? Can come down here and basically print out this to do, this one here to do. If I come and start typing, you can see whatever I'm typing is appearing where I did to do. You see? Basically, now it's a controlled input. When I press a key, you guys can still see. When I press a key, you guys can see. Someone to just confirm.
Yes.
Yeah. When you press a key, React knows a change event has been fired. The way we just saw when I was console logging up here. That change event contains the target. What is the target? The target is another object which contains another thing called the value. The value is what you are typing inside the input. So we've done this one. We are done with use a form to get user input. Done. What is next? Create a piece of state to hold the user input or the to do. Actually, we've already done that too. AKA the to do. Yeah, this is also done. The second one is also done. Let's just wrap things like that. And then number 3, create a piece of state to hold the to-dos array. We want, when we create a to-do, you want it to be stored somewhere. But before that, actually there's another step that we needed to look at. How do you now get what has been submitted from a form? This is a form. How will we be able to get whatever we submit from this form into state? How will we be able to do that? Basically, React will also control this form. This form, it also contains another change handler. The way we just use on change here to listen for the change events on the input. The form also has something. It's called on submit. So when you submit the form, this particular event fires the on submit event. But that, which means we also have to take the on submit event. The way we've just taken it down here, we'll do the same thing here. Just take the E. This is just an arrow function I'm putting in here. And then we'll have handle submit, another function. Just what we did before. And then pass that event inside handle submit like that. This is basically what is happening here. What is happening on the input down here. So when you submit a form in HTML, this on submit is fired, just the way we saw with on change. Let's define our handle submit. Basically, we are telling React, don't worry about all this data, all the user input. React will handle it. That's why you'll see that we're going to change a key behavior of the form component. When you submit a form in HTML, the page always like it will reloads. Yeah, the form always reloads. Let's see that. I can see that. Even if I don't have like a submit button here, I can use enter to submit the form. If I just type something and press enter, it will submit it. Just look at this, the reload icon here. What happens to it? If I press enter, there's a flash and it reloads. That's the default browser behavior. Whenever a form is submitted, Why is it? Oh, people are joining. Oh, it's people joining. I'm thinking like it's reloading. Yeah, guess it's people joining. Yeah, let's continue. Basically, in HTML, when you submit a form, the browser by default will reload. You know, because forms are used maybe to send stuff to the server, and it wants now to have the freshest data, so it will reload. If I type again and press enter, it reloads, and there's that flash. So basically, I want to take over the submission from the form, and that's why you'll see a very key thing in React. We'll always see e.prevent default. What are we preventing? We are preventing the default browser behavior of reloading the page when you submit the form. Let's try it now. If I press enter, no. I've mistyped it. This is why you use TypeScript. I'm not sure whether it's even that. Let's try again. Now I'm pressing enter right now, and it's not submitting, right? So this is what people do when they're doing e.prevent default. Let's just write a comment. Default browser behavior from submission. Give me just a second. There's someone at my door. Yeah, sorry guys. I guess my connection is a bit shaky. Did you miss much? Someone to just tell me where I left at.
After writing the comment on event default.
After writing this comment. Okay, let's continue then. So basically this e.prevent default, it prevents the default browser behavior for form submission, which is reloading the page, and that flicker happens also. Yeah, so after taking over the now event from React, what do we want to do here now? We want to have another piece of state to hold all our to-dos now. Let's just create another one. Can use this one. We'll call it to-dos now in plural, and then the setter will be set to-dos. What did we choose as the data structure for this? It was an array. So you can just start it as an empty array like that. Right? Yeah, so you can just print it out down here. Let's remove the to-do. Just have the to-dos printed down here. To-dos. This is just to print it in a pretty way, so that it doesn't look like that's ISO. Okay, so as you can see, it's an empty array. Right now, it's an empty array. So after taking this event, what do we do next? We need to set to-dos. So let's take that setter function, call it here, like that. What is the to-do? What is holding our to-do state? It's this thing here. It's this piece of state to do as we talked about it earlier. So let's just do that first and see what happens. So we want to set to do's to what has been typed here as a to do. Let's see what happens now. So someone comes in here and types, right? As you type, actually we should also have the to do down here. To do, so that it's also visible. As you type, the setter function for the to do runs and sets the to do state. Then when you press enter, or if you like, maybe you can just have like a button, but if you press enter, it will submit the form. But just for it to be as clear as possible what is happening, let's have this button type submit like that. So when this button is pressed, basically the on submit function runs, and then this runs. The handle submit function runs also. Yeah, so let's see what happens. Someone comes and types and then submits. What has happened? Someone to tell me what has happened as per what you're seeing here. What has happened? And that's what I was saying. We're going to talk about everything. One thing we haven't talked about in terms of state. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm thinking the handle submit because we have taken the to-do item. It has replaced the array with our string.
Yeah, that's exactly what has happened. Yeah, it's Mambo. Mambo, thanks for that. So it has replaced this array with the to-do that we've set. So that's very key in React, and you can get like issues when you're wondering what is happening here. So how are we supposed to do it now? If we want just to add, we don't want to remove, we want to add. So first of all, let's control the to do. Construct new to do. You can call it new to do, and we know its shape. Basically, we want our to do's to be an array of objects. To have an ID. So there's something in the browser. I could use number one or whatever, but there's something in the browser that it's guaranteed to give me unique IDs. It's built into the browser. So I'm going to use it. It's called crypto. And then you call random UID like that. It's a browser API. So that I want to have unique IDs for all my to-dos, because there's something also very key in React. When you map over something and create maybe UI from while mapping over something, you'll get a warning about keys. So I don't want to get that keys warning, and the keys have to be unique. So this ID will basically work as my key, and we'll see that. We'll see why I want to have a unique ID for all to-dos. Yeah, and then the to-do will also have the content. What did we call it? To do. We called it to do, but you can call it content. So what will be the content? You want the content to be the to do. The to do. So we can do to do like that. We've created a new to do. Now let's now set it to a new to do and see what happens when it's submitted. And as you can see, things are not, after I submit, the stuff remains on the input field. We'll see how to handle that too. Hey there. If I click submit, what has happened? That my array has been replaced by the object that I've constructed. That is what has happened. Assuming I want to create another to do. And I submit it again. What happens? My other to do is replaced again. This is not the behavior that I want. I want the to do's to be appended onto each other. Like as I type them, as I add them, I want them to be added into the array, not replacing the array. So the setter functions in React can take a callback function. You can have a callback function in the setter array. So let's look at that. Just put in a callback like that. This callback, it takes in something. Whatever you put inside here is what will be contained inside the piece of state. Whatever name I put here. Normally, you'll say that people might call it previous, like the previous state before I set this new state. That's why it's normally called prev, like the previous. This is just the previous state before this new to-do has been added into as a piece of state inside this array. If you have access to prev, now we'll go and do something that is familiar to you guys, spread operator. We don't want to replace the array. We want to add to it. So we'll just spread it like this. But I cannot spread it directly like that. I have to use the prev like this. So the prev is the state of, how that state is before you set, before running this set to do's. What will be inside that state? We'll see it graphically right here. Yeah, so after spreading in the previous state, now I want to append in my to do as the last thing inside that array like that. So basically, when you're setting state, let's even write a comment. When setting state, comma, if you care about what was previously inside the state, previously in state, use a callback. Otherwise, set directly. So if you care about what is inside that state at that particular moment, you have to use a callback. You give it, it takes an argument automatically like this. We can call it to-dos. You can call it anything. Just let's make it so clear what they are. That the to-dos inside here. But prev is better because it basically indicates to you what actually it's more descriptive. I guess I'll go back to prev. So let's see now the difference in what will happen. Actually, before you do it, does anyone have a question up to there? What I've just explained. Does anyone have a question? I guess not. Let's see what happens now. When I'm typing in, I'm setting the first state because what is being printed down here is what is down here to do. Let's just give it a name. And then I press submit. What has happened differently now? My array has been retained and the array of the object has been added into that array. Now once someone submits the to-do, you want this thing to be automatically cleared. Okay. So once this to-do has been submitted here, we want to clear the state that holds our to-dos. How do we do that? We just call set to-dos, set to do, and then pass it again. We don't care about what was there previously. We won't pass in like a callback function. We just reset it directly into an empty string. Let's do it again. A second to do. Submit. You see? the to-dos array has been, the to-do has been appended on the to-dos array, and my value has been automatically cleared. That's now a controlled input. Basically, React has taken over, and it's the one that is doing everything to manage this particular input. I want to add something else. I want to throw a spanner into the works. I don't want someone to submit like a short to do, maybe 10. We want it to be at least 10 characters. How can we do that? How can we do that? So basically, you can do short circuiting. I talked about short circuiting yesterday. Short circuiting. What is short circuiting? Short circuiting. The funny thing about programming is that the words, the way they sound, they usually mean what the words are saying. So in this case, short circuiting is whereby if this condition evaluates to true, we exit immediately. Nothing else runs. Nothing else runs. We short circuit and just exit. So what is our condition? We want to check our to do. I want it to be at least 10 characters long. How do I check the length of a string in JavaScript? Dot length. If I say less than 10, I want to have a good UI for the user so that the user gets an error so that they know what's happening. I don't just want for the to-do not to be added. I want them to get an error when they try to do it. How will I do that? Another piece of state. That's how we manage state. That's what state is in React. When you want to do something when you want to hold data, when you want to hold a piece that controls something, reach out for state. I'll just say is error set. This is just a convention. Is error. Like that. For me, if I use is, it automatically means that it's a Boolean for me. That's my own convention. You can name it whatever you want. This is the piece of state that we will toggle depending on the length of the to-do. Let's see how to implement that. So we have our condition check here. So if this condition is true, we want to set our piece of state. We set it to true. By default, it's false. But now, if the length of the to-do is shorter than 10 characters, we want to set it to true. So the way it is currently, there'll be a bug, but let's see first what happens. Then I want something to be given out to the user. You can do conditional rendering here. Then we say is error. And we have a div. And then the to-do must be 10 characters. Must be at least 10 characters, like that. I hope I'm still connected. So currently the way it is, let's see. If I come in here and do 2 words and submit, it's saying the to-do must be 10 characters, but it's still adding the to-do. So our short circuit is not complete. Basically, after this condition runs, the program continues downwards and just adds it and resets the input field. But we want to short circuit now. How do we short circuit? Basically, throw in an empty return. Like that. Let's do it again. If it's not like 3, like that. Submit. It has given me the error. It has not reset the field. And it has not added the to-do to the array. I hope that's very clear. Short circuiting. You basically just return. If I return, once the code reaches here, it will not execute what's underneath here. It basically just exits. Any question up to that? I've talked about a bunch of stuff. Any question before we implement the last bit of it? Create a piece of state.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
There is this where you are setting is it online? Where we are setting we are updating our array, online 56.
Here.
Yeah. I wanted to see if it would work. What if we didn't use the callback? We just have the set to do's, then the spread the to do's. Okay. Yeah.
Set to do's.
Yeah.
Then
Have an array, spread the to do's, then
the to do's.
Then add the new to do. The one
New
here.
to do. Yeah,
Would
this
that
might
work?
also work. It might work. It looks very, very promising, but let's see. Let's just see. Let's make it 10 characters. It has entered. Again. Yeah, it's entering.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically more or less the same thing.
Yeah,
It's more or less
and
the same thing. Yeah, nice. This is actually, this is a nice one. For arrays and objects, definitely you can use to do, you can use the spread operator. So if either of the two, whichever looks interesting to you, you can choose it. But this is a nice addition from Evans. Thanks for that, Evans.
does it mean if we put the new to do before spreading, it will, you might want your new to do's to come
In front.
Order,
Let's
that will
change
work.
the order. Just reset. And then the first one, yes. Then no. Let's see what that. Yeah, it's gone in front. Yeah, it's basically JavaScript. If like it's JavaScript and a mix of React. And that's why it's so important to be familiar with JS, especially ES6. This spread is ES6. This is not React, this is JavaScript. And like, if the logic makes sense in JavaScript and it's JavaScript, it will just work. The way, as you can see, the way this one works from Evans. That's a nice addition, Evans. Yeah, but in case you see the callback, you'll know what it's also doing. Yeah, yes, Evans.
Yeah, one last thing. I said the way you generated that ID on line 50, it's inbuilt. You just have to know the.
Yeah, you see, I've just called crypto. It's actually a browser API. Let's do this. Just search for it. It's a very easy way of handling keys. It's the keys is it's a common error. You see, crypto, here it is. Then we're using this method.
Okay, I used to install UUID or something like that.
Yeah, UUID is also a very nice option for that. Yeah, thanks. That's very good feedback from you. And at least you guys have also seen, as long as it's valid JavaScript, as long as you're not mutating. The key here is mutation. We don't want to mutate. We don't want to delete or edit or modify the array that we have previously. We just want to take a copy of it, add something new to it, and set that as our new piece of state. And that's how you use either you can spread, because basically the to-dos, these ones will contain all the to-dos. So it's just valid. These to-dos, we're just spreading them. Whatever is contained inside that array, when we're adding a new to-do, let's spread it according to Evans's implementation. Let's just spread that, append our new to-do, and set the whole new array as the new state. That's just what is happening. Okay, thanks, Evans, for that. So,
I've got another question.
Okay, go ahead. Mambo.
We use the return on in our conditional
Mm-hmm.
to so that we can short circuit.
Yes.
I'm curious if maybe we did not have the return on line 46, and
Mm-hmm.
then we had an else block that contained our line 49 to line 58. Will the short
Yeah,
circuit still work?
definitely it will. But in an if and an else.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
we,
definitely.
we
Yeah,
put our
it will. Let's just try it out. It will branch to the else, and
I guess
it should work basically.
I wanted to be sure that the short circuit does not depend on the return keyword.
If you do it like this, it's not short circuiting now. This is something different. This is if else.
Or it's conditional.
It's conditional. Yeah.
So to
But
short
as you
circuit,
can
we
see,
must have
it's still working.
the
Short circuiting. It's basically if that condition is executed, exit. Otherwise, continue. Otherwise, continue executing. But this is just an if else, but it's also equally a valid implementation because it's just valid JavaScript. This is very valid also. As you can see, it's basically JavaScript mixed in with a bit of React. And it's very, very important to know what bit is React, what bit is JavaScript. And depending on your style, you can, like, there are many ways of doing these things. If you want to use conditionals, you can do it. If you want to use short circuiting, you can do it. Spread operators, you can do it. And I'm sure there are many other ways still of doing the same thing. Because you can definitely even use maybe concat to create a new array and all that. But with a spread operator, like, it's just a single line instead of going to multiple lines. Thanks again for that input, ma'am. But at least as you can see, guys, it's basically just JS. Valid JS is valid React, and it will work. Okay. So, there's another question.
Yeah. So when do you recommend somebody to use short circuiting? Like, is it the go-to way, or you use it in specific situations?
Mostly, it will be situational, and it will be also preferential. Because like there are very, very many different ways of like writing code, but most of the time it will be preferential and or depending on your situation, because in some situations it might be even easier to read that code if you're doing short circuiting. For example, if I'm just doing if to do that return, and for example, yesterday's example, that's a perfect one. Like if someone else comes in to read this code, it's basically also about readability. You don't write code for yourself. You write code for your future self and for other developers. Because if you come to this code maybe 3 months or 5 months from now, if you did a lot of like if you took a very verbose route of doing it just to achieve the end goal, even the code will look foreign to you the writer. But if like you use a bit of a more readable, me actually personally I just prioritize readability of like anything else, because I know the pain that one can get in when you're trying to maintain code that you didn't like maybe use the appropriate namings or the appropriate ways to easily consume it and know what's happening. So short circuiting is a very nice way of being descriptive in your code. Basically, someone can just come in and say, yeah, to do that. If it's less than 10, it's just exiting. Otherwise, it continues. Like, yeah, depending on, but it's also like very, very preferential. Like, I can say that. Yeah, we're running out of time. Let's just do them.
I have another question, still on short circuiting.
Okay, Catherine.
Can you have multiple instances of short circuits? Let's say where you have a form that has multiple stages and requires different data. So can you utilize that to maintain, to maintain those steps within these states?
Yeah, you can, yeah, I get the question. Yeah, you can have multiple of them. You can have multiple conditions checking different things. and then maybe setting state or exit and exiting, just depending on what you want to do. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you won't even need to return, like to exit. You might want the code below it to continue running because they might also be conditionals. So you can basically chain them here if you want. Yeah. I'll try to think of something else that we can maybe do, maybe some validation that might necessitate using another if else, and then we can chain it. Let me just put on my lights. Okay, so basically, yeah. Let's see, where were we? Yeah, now we want to implement let's just loop over it. Let's display our content instead of this JSON so that we see why we need a unique ID. It's also very important. So you can just map over our todos.map to do, then is an implicit return. I hope you guys know about implicit returns. Basically, you don't need the return keyword if you don't have additional stuff inside here. If I'm not doing maybe additional logic inside here, I can just do an implicit return like this without the return keyword. Because the alternative of this, let's just see how it would look. I don't like seeing multiple returns. It throws someone. It might throw you off a bit. This is the alternative. Yeah, shit. It has messed itself up. Yeah, but basically, instead of having a return here and another return down here, you can just do an implicit return. Yeah, so let's just practice what we've been doing. You can destructure content instead of taking the whole array, and also destructure ID. Actually, there was that error. Let's just print out the content. We want to get anything. Oh, yeah, it's supposed to be inside those. Yeah, this is what is inside our to-dos currently. So let's reset to do item 1, to do item 2, to do item 3. If we go to our console, we've got this warning. Each child in a list should have a unique key prop. Why I explained why React needs a unique key. Basically, if this data was to change, and that's why we have our final. That's why we have our final number 5 here. Actually, we've done all the 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's why you have this one. Implement to do delete logic. You're supposed to mutate this to do array. How will React know this to do has been deleted? Something has changed. It will know using these IDs. And that's why you get, whenever you are mapping over something and creating pieces of UI from that, you'll get this keys warning. So we know by using this our crypto.u random UID, they will be unique. That's like it's a must. That's sure. So our error just disappears. Just refresh. You can see you no longer have that error. So that's it. React wants to know each individual to do by their ID, so that in case you delete or do something else, React will be able to now re-render very well and with a lot of efficiency what you have specified in your UI. In this case, it's to do. let's just say delete. Very ugly UI, but it will give us a foundation to understand how React works and how to use it. Yeah, we haven't done any components. Today was only working on state. Let me just plug in this computer. Okay, that's enough. Let's do it like this. Let's finish up now. So we want, when you click on this button, the to do that particular button references is deleted, is removed from our UI. Yeah. Let's add a to do, a few to dos. To do must be to do one. That's still submitted. Yeah, so basically I want, when I click this button, the to do disappears. It's magically removed from the array. So we have to always, when you're doing functional programming, you have to always have something called immutability in mind. Immutability. Basically, use tools that will not mutate data. So whether it's an array method, whether it's like whatever you're trying to do, make sure you don't mutate your data. The way we just use the prev and the way Evans showed us a different way to do it up there. So you want to delete, but you don't want to like use pop or whatever. You don't want to use like a method that will mutate the original array. How do we do that? First of all, we want the action to happen on click. So you have to definitely attach an on click handler on our button. The way we had an on change and on submit, we also have an on click. In React, you don't do document.add event listener, whatever, remove event listener. The event listeners will be managed for you by React. So when we click on this delete icon, we want to delete the to do. Again, we need to take something. If you need to take something to reference something, you always have to call an arrow function. Handle delete doesn't exist. Can come up here and delete. Now this is what we call declarative programming. I'm telling React what I want to be done. React does it. I'm telling it, when I delete this to do, render the UI. I don't care how you'll do it, but just do it, and React does it. Handle delete. What do we need? We need what is the unique thing? What is the key? What is the unique thing in these to-dos? It's the ID. So we can use the ID. Basically, let me just explain something. If you do it like this function runs. It will just run. Like when the UI refreshes, it runs automatically. And that's why you always use a callback for that. That's why you do like this and then pass it down ID. Then now this arrow function passes it down to our handle delete function. Up here, our handle delete takes the ID. The first thing that you can just is console log the ID. Yeah. So I've clicked. Oh, let's see. Console. Yeah, object. I think this is the event. This is the event. We might be having an error here. And I'll delete. Is it the same one? Let's see.
I think it's doing that because
Mhm.
the on-click functions, the first parameter is usually the event by default.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
it's
think
the
we have to
event.
pass the
Oh, yeah.
event then the ID.
I see the issue. We don't pass it here. We pass it directly. Yeah, I see it. Thanks for that, Mambo. In this case, yeah, the way I said, if we do it like this, it will automatically run when the thing re-renders. But if you use a callback and then we pass the ID directly, if you pass it here, inside here, it's like doing E. The Mambo has pointed out. It's like doing like this E. So this is the event as you've seen from our console log. And as I told you guys, it can have any name. So I put it as an ID, but the React knows it's E. But now that we've done it like this, you'll see that it will basically just render the ID of that particular to do. If I do this, the second one renders a different ID, the third one a different ID. So we have the ID inside this function. How can we delete it? How can we delete it without mutating our array? Yeah, that's why learning about array methods and the immutable ones. A good candidate here will be filter. What are other immutable like array methods? Some, find, map, every. There are many. Can go and do research, but in this instance, the one that we'll use is filter. Const filtered to dos is equals to, we have access to our to dos, right? They are here inside this array. You can grab them. Here in the last bit, we've gone a bit fast, but from the recording, I guess you guys can just do the rest of it. Sorry for going a bit fast here in the end. So basically, you can see all the methods available, but we want to filter. You want to filter. If you see this weird thing, this is called optional chaining. Just a second, someone is on my door. Yeah, let's finish up. This is optional chaining. I like pointing out these things because you'll see them, people using them, and you have to understand what they're all about. So basically, this optional chaining so that I avoid errors in case to do is null or undefined. Like I'm promising, I'm just saying these to dos will, you cannot. Let's do this. Let's set it to null here. So this is why you use TypeScript. Basically, you cannot do a filter on a null. You see, if it was TypeScript, I would be getting like red squiggly lines here. Basically, this I already have a bug. Let's just implement it like this. So basically, filter, I want to filter according to the ID that is passed into the delete function. So all the to-dos that I have inside my array, I want to check each one of them. This dot filter will run and look at each of the to-do inside the array. And then to do that ID, I know the ID exists. So I want to remain with the to-dos whose IDs don't match the ID that I've passed in. This is just JavaScript. ID, like that. This is actually, it should be causing a very, very big bug, but there's no bug. And this is why, again, I say that this is why you use TypeScript. So after filtering it, although it has a bug, now you set it again. Because we don't care about what has been removed.
What exactly is the bug?
Or the bug is chaining and dot filter on a null on a null data type. The dot filter is only available on an array, on a dot map. Yeah, tomorrow is a holiday after all. Let me just show you practically.
Would the bug show up on production, or where would it show up?
It won't work. Like, it won't work. You might spend a lot of time trying to figure it out. Like, the filter will not work. But if you're using TypeScript, let me just show you what's happening real quick, because tomorrow after all is a holiday. People will be relaxing. So if I have something that is null, let me just make it big. It's a bit of a stray from what we are doing, but it's important. My array is equals to null. Assuming it's null, because I'm fetching data, the network might fail, so it might be null before the data comes in. If I come in here and chain dot filter on this, what do I get? Filter does not exist on type never. You see? It's null. It does not exist. But if it was an array like that, yeah, there's still it's maybe let's just I didn't want to go this route, but let's just represent our to do. It is string, content string, like that. Now I can do the filter. You see, it's working already. Basically, if I was doing the to do, return to do, I don't have any error. Basically, this is just I'm saying it's an array. It's an array of objects. An array that has an object with an ID type string and content type string. If I come here, I get something called autocomplete. I cannot add something just from nowhere. You basically have to abide by this shape. This is why you use TypeScript again. Let's finish now. So yeah, after explaining that, you can basically just return this to an array. Yeah, so here, let's now see what happens. To do number one, enter. To do should have a unique key. We have an issue here. You have to move our key. Do number two, enter. To do number three, enter. And then let's have that too, but you can have it on the bottom like that. Yeah, so let's see. If I click delete, you see I have not mutated this array. I've basically created a new one. Filter returns a new array. Filter returns a new array. We don't want to mutate. We don't want to do push. We don't want to do pop. We don't want to do unshift. We don't want to do shift. We want to use methods that will not mutate this array. A key one for doing delete is filter. You can reach for it whichever time. This is another to do. Submit. Delete. It goes. You see? Any question up to there? Yeah, so basically we've done all these three, but you can always there's a hand. Oh, okay, Ian. Yeah, finishing up actually. Yeah, there's always something that you can improve in your application. So let's just look at that and then let's exit. So basically, we're mapping over our to-dos here. We can have another conditional here. and then say todos dot length is equals to 0. If that is the case, do something here, otherwise do something else here. So if it's 0, you can have an h2 here, todos to display, and then otherwise can have this one. What is ape? Oh. Yeah, there's a weird bug. Yeah, there's a weird bug here. But basically what I was trying to do, let's just see another, we can just do it with short circuiting. Now that is another, but let's assuming you can do it with short circuiting like this. Like, as you can see, it's pretty hard sometimes to just embed your code inside another code. Give it another try. If it's 0, you want it to say that there's no to-dos. Otherwise, it returns the other stuff. But now, for this one, it will replace the form. But assuming you had more time, we would have made it a bit more lovely. But yeah, it's a key thing that you will see. What is happening? And this is why you also always have to have your console open. So yeah, there's no error. Yeah, no to-dos. But yeah, as you can see, it has replaced everything down here. But if we had maybe our form, this form, also up here. No to-dos. And the form there. Then yeah, if we come in here to do number 1, submit, the component re-renders and something else is returned, you see. But now I don't have the form. Basically, yeah, this is just a good example of, if I delete it, it goes back to that UI. Basically, as soon as it re-renders, the whole code runs from top to bottom, and whatever happens to be true is returned, and it exits at that point. So for example, right now the length is 0, so it exits right here. If we add something else, the nini becomes 1 to do number another, and then it basically